I had just steadied the old wooden chest I'd brought back from the countryside against the corner when Lu Zenting pushed the door open and strode in. He wore a crisp military uniform, the bright insignia on his epaulets glinting with cold light under the dim yellow bulb. It looked completely out of place against the mottled earthen walls and faded bedding of the room. In his hand was a neatly folded sheet of paper. Before I could even lower the hand I'd used to wipe my sweat, he slapped it down on the 8 immortal table with a sharp smack. "Yuan, sign it." His voice was as hard and cold as the man himself, carrying not a trace of warmth. I lifted my eyes and glanced at the paper. The bold words "military-issued divorce certificate" jumped out at me. His name Lu Zenting had already been signed in sharp, impatient strokes that practically screamed how eager he was to be rid of me. This was the spring of 1918, only the second day after we'd returned from the countryside. For 3 whole years, I had followed him to that remote outpost, enduring every hardship without a single complaint, washing his clothes, cooking his meals, and patching whatever needed mending. I had thought that once we came back, we would finally settle into a peaceful life. Instead, this was what waited for me. I didn't rush to sign. I simply looked at him calmly. I wasn't accusing him, I just wanted to hear what grand, righteous excuse he could possibly offer. Lu Zenting frowned, as if my silence itself was unnecessary. "We can't go on like this," he said after a beat, his voice thick with disdain. "Just look at yourself, so rustic and countrified. You don't fit in at all with the families in the compound. You'd only embarrass me." I smiled. The excuse was so perfunctory it was almost laughable. Those 3 years in the countryside, when had I ever had the chance to dress up? I had been run off my feet every single day, all for the sake of this family. Yet in his eyes, he saw only my plain appearance and none of the effort I had poured out. Mom heard the commotion and hurried out from the inner room. The moment she saw the divorce certificate on the table, her face went deathly pale. "Zenting, what are you doing? Yuan has only just come back with you. How can you bring up divorce now? Talk it out properly." Lu Zenting didn't spare Mom a glance. His eyes stayed locked on me, impatience written all over his face. "Mom, this is between Yuan and me. Stay out of it." His voice hardened. "She's signing today whether she wants to or not. The military has already issued the certificate." He was utterly certain I had no way out. I picked up the fountain pen from the table. The nib scratched across the paper with a soft rustle. Mom stood beside me, frantic, tugging desperately at my sleeve. "Yuan, don't act rashly, don't be impulsive. What will you do after the divorce?" I didn't turn my head. I didn't hesitate. Stroke by steady stroke, I wrote out Yuan in neat, unwavering characters. The instant I set the pen down, Lu Zenting visibly stiffened. He had probably expected me to cry and wail, to throw a fit, maybe even run to the military unit and cause a scene. But I did none of those things. A flicker of surprise crossed his cold face, quickly replaced by contempt. It was as if he were thinking, just as I expected a clueless country woman. She agreed to the divorce without a fuss. "Since you've signed it, we'll go to the civil affairs office first thing tomorrow morning to finish the paperwork." He snatched up the certificate, stuffed it into his uniform pocket, and turned to leave without another word. The door slammed shut behind him with a heavy thud, like a hastily scrawled full stop at the end of our marriage. Mom pulled me into her arms, her voice breaking. "You silly girl, how could you really sign it? Why are you so stubborn?" I patted her back gently. My heart was perfectly clear. This marriage had long been like a rotten rope, barely holding 2 unwilling people together and making both of us miserable. Now that it was severed, it was nothing but a relief. "Mom, don't cry," I said softly. This divorce is the right choice. The next morning, the sky had barely begun to lighten when Lu Zhenting was already waiting at the courtyard gate. He was still in that same crisp uniform, but his brows were knitted even tighter, irritation plain on his face. After I washed up quickly and changed into a clean blue cotton jacket, Mom followed close behind me, eyes still red, clutching the hem of my clothes as if she couldn't bear to let go. Wan, think it over again, she pleaded once more, voice trembling. Even if he hasn't been good to you, he's a regiment commander. At least you'd have food on the table and someone to lean on. I gently patted her cold hand. Mom, relying on someone else is never as good as relying on yourself. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Lu Zhenting set off ahead with long, brisk strides, never once slowing down to see if Mom and I could keep up. The early spring morning air still carried a chill that brushed against our faces with a dry bite. Along the road we occasionally passed early rising military families, who cast curious, probing glances our way. Lu Zhenting acted as though he saw none of it, marching forward without looking back. Mom and I had to half jog to keep pace, while she whispered urgent advice in my ear the whole way. When we get to the Civil Affairs office, if the staff asks you anything, don't be stubborn. Say some soft words. There might still be a chance to turn things around. There's no need for that, Mom, I said softly, my gaze fixed on Lu Zhenting's back ahead. After 3 years, I had seen through him completely. His heart had room only for his own future. To him, I had only ever been a temporary decoration from his countryside days. Now that he was back, of course, he wanted to replace me with a wife worthy of a regiment commander. Why is there no need? Mom grew anxious, tugging hard at my sleeve. A divorced woman carries a bad name. How will you ever remarry? You're my only daughter, how can I not worry? I knew Mom meant well. In this era, divorce was a devastating blow for any woman. The gossip alone was enough to drown a person. But I wasn't afraid. I had already made my plans. Once the divorce was final, I would earn money with my own 2 hands and build a good life for both Mom and me. It was 2010, and policies were already showing signs of easing. City markets were gradually coming alive, and more than a few people had begun quietly doing small trades on the side. I remembered the aunt next door in the village, who had secretly sold her homemade pickles last year and earned quite a sum. From childhood, Grandma had taught me how to make osmanthus cakes and sar jujube cakes. My skills were solid. If I set up a small stall, I was confident I could make a living. Just thinking about it made my steps feel lighter. Lu Zhenting must have noticed I was falling behind. He stopped, turned, and shot me an impatient look. Hurry up. Don't dawdle. The Civil Affairs office doesn't open until 8. Don't make me late for work. Understood, I replied evenly, then took Mom's hand and quickened our pace. Mom kept chattering. When we get there, don't smile and don't argue with him. Even if you're divorcing, at least part on good terms, and keep your dignity. I nodded on the surface, agreeing obediently. Inside, I couldn't help thinking. This marriage had never had any good terms to begin with. Parting cleanly now was already the best possible outcome. I just wanted to get the divorce certificate and be completely free of this man, so I could start a new life. Right before we reached the Civil Affairs office, Mom gripped my hand tightly again and lowered her voice. Girl, remember what Mom told you. Don't act on impulse, and don't let your real feelings show. She was afraid I would lose my temper inside and make a scene, turning myself into a spectacle for others. I smiled at her, eyes steady. Mom, I won't make a scene. Don't worry, everything will be better after today. Lu Zhenting had already reached the doorway. He glanced back at us coldly, as if urging us to move faster. I took a deep breath, held Mom's hand, and walked inside. The office was small, its walls whitewashed but still dusty in the corners. 2 wooden counters stood by the window. A staff member wearing a blue cloth cap sat behind one, pen in hand, sorting documents. Lou Zenting walked straight up and placed the military-issued divorce certificate, our household registration books, and marriage certificate on the counter. His tone was coldly official. "Comrade, we're here to process a divorce." The staff member looked up and swept his gaze over the 3 of us. It lingered a few seconds on Mom's and my tense faces, before settling on Lou Zenting's sharp uniform. Without extra questions, he followed procedure and began verifying the information. "Both parties agree?" "I agree," Lou Zenting answered first, voice loud and commanding, like he was issuing an order. I nodded, "I agree." Mom stood beside me, sweating with anxiety. She nudged me with her elbow, silently urging me to say more. I pretended not to notice, and simply watched the staff member fill out the form with calm, steady strokes. The process was straightforward. Verify details, sign confirmation, apply the seal. Lou Zenting handled every step with brisk efficiency, as though this were nothing more than routine paperwork, instead of the end of a marriage. He never once looked at me. His eyes stayed glued to the tip of the staff member's pen, silently urging him to hurry. Mom stood behind me, hands twisted tightly together, murmuring under her breath, "What a sin," so softly, only I could hear. I could feel her worry, but my own heart grew lighter and lighter, as if a stone that had pressed on me for years was finally sinking down to rest. At last, the staff member picked up 2 small red booklets, stamped them with a crisp "P", and pushed one toward each of us. "Done. Keep your divorce certificates." That red booklet, with its gold embossed characters on the cover, felt slightly rough under my fingers. Yet the moment I touched it, every grievance, every suppressed resentment I had carried for years, simply vanished like smoke. So this was what freedom felt like: lightness in every limb, breath coming easier. I couldn't stop the corners of my mouth from lifting. At first it was just a soft chuckle. Then I couldn't hold it back. The smile deepened until a light laugh escaped me. "Hey," Mom reacted instantly. One hand flew up to cover my mouth, while the other yanked my arm hard. She hissed in my ear, voice frantic, "Girl, don't laugh so loudly." She was terrified someone would realize I was genuinely happy about the divorce. Terrified they would mock me for smiling at a moment like this. And even more terrified that Lou Zenting would notice. My laughter cut off at once. With Mom's hand still over my mouth, I could only make muffled sounds in my throat. I blinked at her to show I understood. Only then did she let go, though she kept a tight grip on my arm, eyes full of warning. Lou Zenting had already picked up his certificate and was turning to leave. At the sound of my laugh, he stopped mid-step. He spun around, brows furrowed, staring at me with a mix of confusion, disbelief, and offended displeasure. "What are you laughing at?" he asked, voice low and cold, the edge in it sharpening further. He truly couldn't understand how a woman who had just been cast aside by her husband could possibly smile the moment she received her divorce certificate. In his mind, I should have been crying, blaming heaven and earth, or begging him to change his mind. I wiped the corner of my mouth, the smile still lingering, but my tone stayed perfectly calm. "Nothing. I'm just relieved it's finally over." Half truth, half deflection enough to explain the smile without revealing my real thoughts. Lou Zenting stared at me for several long seconds, as if searching my face for something. But my expression was open and steady, showing neither guilt nor sorrow. He frowned, gave a cold snort, and said, "Since it's done, we each go our own way." With that, he turned and strode out, steps even faster than before, as if every extra second in my presence was unbearable. He shoved the divorce certificate carelessly into his uniform pocket, like it was worthless scrap paper. Mom let out a long breath and patted my back. "You child, you nearly scared me to death. How could you not hold it in?" I watched Lou Zenting's figure disappear through the door, then looked down at the red booklet in my hand. My heart felt wide open and bright. "Mom, I really am happy," I said softly, eyes shining with a smile. "From today onward, I, Su Wan, will finally live for myself." When we stepped out of the Civil Affairs office, the spring sun had climbed high. Its warm rays poured over us, chasing away the morning chill. Mom stayed mostly silent on the way back, simply holding my hand with heavy steps. Back at our small flat-roofed house in the military family compound, Mom poured me a cup of hot water. She watched me tuck the divorce certificate carefully into my inner pocket, then sat down across from me with a sigh. "Wan, tell Mom the truth. You wanted this divorce for a long time, didn't you?" I cradled the warm cup, letting its heat seep into my palms and my heart. I nodded. "Mom, I've wanted it. For a long time. I just never found the right moment." "You child, why didn't you tell me sooner?" Mom frowned, voice thick with heartache. "Did he treat you badly back in the countryside?" I set the cup down and let my mind drift back over those 3 years. When we first arrived at the outpost, conditions were harsh. There was no proper housing, just a makeshift adobe hut that leaked wind in winter and rain in summer. I rose before dawn every day to light the fire and cook, washing and ironing his uniform until it was spotless and crisp. He never once acknowledged the hardship. Once I came down with a terrible cold and fever, shivering uncontrollably. I asked him to take leave and accompany me to the town clinic. But he said the unit had a mission and told me to endure it. In the end, the military wife next door took pity on me and went with me instead. When I returned, he didn't ask about my health. He only complained that I had delayed washing his clothes. Another time, last winter, Mom had specially stewed cured meat and made pickled vegetables, riding half a day on the bus to bring them to us so we could eat better. Lou Zenting wore a sour face the entire meal, complaining that the vegetables were too salty and the meat too fatty, embarrassing Mom in front of everyone. That night she cried secretly for hours. The next morning she took the early bus home, reminding me to take care of myself and not quarrel with him. I had never told Mom any of this before, afraid it would worry her. But now that the divorce was done, speaking the truth felt freeing. "He never cared about this family," I said calmly. In his eyes, I was nothing more than a maid who washed clothes and cooked meals, a decoration on his path to promotion. Now that he's back, he thinks I'm no longer worthy of a regiment commander's wife. So he wants to cast me aside. Mom's eyes reddened again. That heartless man. Our Wan suffered so much with him. How could he be so cruel? "Mom, don't be sad," I said, taking her hand. "A man like that isn't worth my attachment. I used to think I could just endure it for the family's sake, so you wouldn't worry. But now I understand. In this life, you can't always live for others. You have to live for yourself at least once. But you're a woman. How will you manage after the divorce?" Mom's worry was plain. "Never mind the gossip, the question of how you'll make a living is real." "Don't worry, Mom," I said firmly. "I'm young and strong, and I know some handicrafts. I'll find a way. Besides, policies are changing. The city markets are getting lively. I want to try a small business. We won't go hungry." Mom looked at me, hesitation clear in her eyes. Doing business is still considered speculation and profiteering. They used to crack down hard on it. It's different now, I explained. I heard from Sister Zhang in the compound that her distant relative in the south has already started selling goods at a stall, and no one's bothering them. The policies are loosening. As long as we work honestly, don't steal or cheat, and earn with our own skills. There won't be a problem. I knew Mom still carried old fears. In this era, doing business was still new and carried risk. But my mind was made up. I refused to keep living the way I had, circling around others and watching their moods. Mom, I don't want to wrong myself anymore, I said earnestly, meeting her gaze. Divorce isn't the end for me, it's a new beginning. I want to use my own two hands to give both of us a good life, without having to look at anyone else's face ever again. Mom was silent for a long time. Finally, looking into my determined eyes, she nodded, her own eyes red. Good, Mom believes in you. Whatever you've decided, Mom will support you. No matter what the future holds, Mom will be right here with you. With Mom's support, my heart felt steadier than ever. Sunlight streamed through the window, brightening the whole room. I knew the road ahead might not be easy, but as long as I stayed true to myself and lived for my own sake, I would carve out a path that belonged to me. Once I decided to start the small business, I began planning the details that same day. Osmanthus cakes and sour jujube cakes were Grandma's specialties, and she had taught me well. They had a perfect sweet and sour balance, never greasy, and the ingredients were easy to source. I could pick fresh osmanthus at the foot of the hills outside town, and wild sour jujube trees grew plentifully in the village. Flour and sugar would cost money, but the quantities were small, so I could control the cost. Most importantly, very few people in the city were making this kind of handmade pastry yet, so they would almost certainly sell well. I shared the idea with Mom. She listened carefully, fingers unconsciously twisting the hem of her jacket. I know your grandmother's osmanthus cakes were delicious, but will they actually sell? Everyone's used to buying from the supply and a marketing cooperative. Who would choose ours over theirs, when ours has no name to speak of? Mom, the cooperative's pastries are expensive, overly sweet, and greasy, and they're all machine-made, I explained. Ours use real, fresh ingredients. People can eat them with peace of mind. If we price them just a little cheaper than the cooperative, plenty will be willing to try. But sugar and flour require ration tickets and cash. Where would our family get enough? Mom's worries were still heavy. That bit of pension plus what I've saved isn't much. If we lose it, we'll have nothing left. I knew she feared the risk. That money was our entire savings. I took her hand gently. Mom, I've already calculated it. For the first batch, we'll make less, just 2 caddies of flour and half a caddy of sugar. I'll pick the osmanthus and sour jujubes myself tomorrow morning for free. Even if they don't sell, we can eat them ourselves. It won't be a loss. Mom stayed quiet a moment, then seeing the hope in my eyes finally relented. All right. Let's try it. But you must be careful, don't let anyone accuse you of speculation and profiteering. Don't worry, I'll pick a quieter spot, go early, and come back early. Nothing will go wrong. The next day, long before dawn, I slung a bamboo basket on my back and headed for the outskirts. The early spring morning mist still lingered. Dewdrops clung to the roadside grass, soaking my pant legs. The osmanthus trees at the foot of the hill were lush, golden blossoms heavy on every branch and filling the air with sweet fragrance. I picked them carefully, my fingers soon stained red from the flower juice, but my heart was full of joy. After filling the basket with osmanthus, I found wild sour jujube trees in the village. The bright red fruit hung like little lanterns, tempting and beautiful. I gathered a full basket and only started back when the sun had risen. When I reached home, Mom had already bought the flour and sugar. She was waiting in the courtyard. Rest a while, you look exhausted. She took the basket from me, wiped the sweat from my forehead with tender concern, then said, I'll boil some water. You handle the osmanthus and sour jujubes. For the next 2 days, Mom and I worked side by side at home, We sorted the osmanthus, washed it clean, and dried it. We pitted the sar jujubes, mashed them into paste, mixed them with flour and sugar, kneaded the dough, and steamed it. I did every step with extra care, and the result tasted just as authentic as Grandma's. The steamed osmanthus cakes released a rich floral aroma, white and fluffy. The sar jujube cakes glowed a beautiful red, sweet and tangy, perfect for whetting the appetite. Mom tasted a piece, and her eyes lit up. This flavor is wonderful, much better than anything from the cooperative. Looking at the trays piled high with pastries, I felt both excited and nervous. Everything was ready except for the capital to buy more ingredients and make a larger batch for the market. I knew Mom had a bit of private savings she had scrimped together over the years, originally meant to keep for me in case of emergencies. At dinner, I hesitated, then spoke. Mom, for our first stall, we should make more pastries so we can earn more. Could you lend me some of your private savings to buy extra ingredients? Mom's chopsticks paused midair. She lowered her head, silent for several seconds, then set the chopsticks down, stood up, and went into the inner room. A moment later, she returned with a small bundle wrapped in a handkerchief and handed it to me. There are 30 yuan and 20 caddies of grain coupons inside. I saved every bit myself. Take it. I accepted the bundle. It felt heavy in my hands. When I opened it, I saw both large and small bills along with neatly folded grain coupons. My nose stung and my eyes grew hot. Mom, this is your retirement money. I can't take it? You silly child. Mom cut me off gently. Mom's old now and doesn't need much. Take this money and do well. As long as you live comfortably, Mom will be at ease. This isn't just for you, it's capital for the two of us to start this business together. Once we earn, we'll save some for Mom again. I clutched the money and coupons tightly, my heart overflowing with gratitude and determination. This was more than capital, it was Mom's complete trust and hope in me. Mom, don't worry. I'll work hard and won't let you down, I said firmly. Mom smiled and nodded, adding another piece of osmanthus cake to my bowl. Eat up. We have to leave early tomorrow to get a good spot at the market and sell at a good price. I took a bite. The sweet fragrance spread through my mouth, and my heart felt just as sweet. I knew that once I took this step, there would be no turning back. But I wasn't afraid. With Mom's support behind me, my own skills in my hands, and hope for the future in my heart, I would make this business a success and give the two of us a brighter and brighter life. The next morning, Mom and I were packing the freshly steamed osmanthus cakes and sar jujube cakes into clean bamboo baskets, getting ready to head to the Eastern City Market. When a light knock sounded at the courtyard gate. Who is it? Mom wiped the flour from her hands and went to open the door. Outside stood Shen Manley. She wore a Daikron floral blouse, her hair combed sleek and shiny, a touch of snow cream on her face. In the spring sunlight, she looked especially eye-catching. She had been a close friend of mine in the compound before, and was also the younger sister of one of Lu Zening's staff officers. She had always liked to linger around him. Aunt Wang, Su Wan, I came to see you both. Shen Manley wore a sweet, saccharine smile, but her eyes darted quickly over Mom and me before landing on the bamboo baskets on the table. A flicker of curiosity flashed in her gaze. Mom clearly hadn't expected her visit. She paused, then stepped aside. Manley, come in and sit. I kept working, portioning the pastries into small packets, wrapped in clean oil paper. I only glanced up and said flatly, "You're here." Shen Manley walked to the table and pretended to examine the pastry with interest. "Oh, Su-wan, what are you making? It smells wonderful." She reached out to take one. I calmly slid the basket back, avoiding her hand. "Just some homemade osmanthus cakes and sar jujube cakes." I'm taking them to the market to sell for a little money. My tone stayed even. I had no intention of making small talk. Shen Manli's hand hovered in mid-air. Her smile dimmed for a second, then quickly returned to normal. Yuan, you've only just divorced. Why are you already thinking about doing something like this? It's so hard on you. She sighed, voice dripping with fake sympathy. Regiment Commander Liu is really something. How could he be so heartless? You were husband and wife, after all. Couldn't he at least help you out a little? I looked straight at her. Her eyes flickered, unable to meet mine. Clearly there was more behind her words. I smiled and asked, "Help me out how? By taking back the divorce certificate? Or by giving me money, so I can stay home and live off someone else?" Shen Manlai was momentarily choked. She quickly waved her hands. "That's not what I meant. I just think it's not easy for a woman like you to run a business. What if people start talking, or you get accused of speculation and profiteering? It wouldn't be worth it at all." I looked at her and said, evenly, "I earn money with my own skills, without stealing or robbing. What's not worth it about that?" I picked up a packet of sour jujube cakes and placed it in Mom's hands. Besides, relying on anyone else is never as good as relying on yourself. What others give you will always belong to them. Only when you have your own skills can your heart truly feel at peace. Mom nodded beside me in agreement. "That's right, Manly, our Wanwan wants to do something honest and proper. The two of us are doing legitimate work. We're not afraid of what people might say." Shen Manly looked at me, then at Mom. The curiosity in her eyes grew even sharper. "So, Suwan, what do you plan to do from now on? Keep running this little stall forever? Have you thought about finding another suitable person to marry?" The question was blunt, obviously fishing to see if I had any intention of remarrying, and whether I might still try to cling to Lu Zhenting. I laughed coldly to myself, but my face stayed perfectly calm. "We'll talk about the future when it comes. Right now, I just want to focus on making this business a success, so Mom and I can live comfortably. As for finding someone else, fate can't be forced. Unlike certain people who keep coveting what was never theirs to begin with, only to lose every shred of dignity in the process." Shen Manli's face flushed bright red in an instant. She had clearly caught the barb hidden in my words. She tugged at the corner of her jacket, forcing herself to stay composed. "Suwan, what exactly do you mean by that? I came here out of kindness to see how you're doing, and this is how you talk to me." I didn't mean anything at all. I picked up the bamboo basket and stood. "Manly, thank you for your concern. But we need to hurry to the market to secure a good spot. So we won't keep you any longer." Mom stood up as well. Though her words were polite, her tone left no room for argument. "Manly, we're truly sorry. We have a lot to handle today. If there's nothing else, you should head back first. We can catch up another day." Shen Manli clearly hadn't expected me to dismiss her so directly. Her smile cracked, and a flash of anger and resentment flickered in her eyes. She opened her mouth as if she wanted to say more, but when she met my steady gaze, she swallowed the words. "Then I won't disturb you any longer." She forced out a smile, turned, and walked away. At the courtyard gate, she paused and glanced back at the pastries on the table, her expression complicated. Watching her hurried departure, Mom let out a long breath. That Manly came today with no good intentions. What good intentions could she possibly have? I sneered inwardly. She simply wanted to see how miserable I was after the divorce and find out whether I still had any feelings for Lu Zhenting. Mom frowned. "You mean she and Lu Zhenting?" I cut her off gently before she could finish. "We don't need to worry about them anymore, Mom. The only thing that matters now is living our own lives well." I lifted the heavy bamboo basket. Inside weren't just pastries, they held every hope Mom and I had for the future. Shen Manley's little probe was nothing more than a minor distraction. She wanted to humiliate me, but I was determined to thrive and show her that leaving Lu Zhenting hadn't dimmed my shine one bit. Mom, let's go. We're heading to the market. We can't let a small thing like this delay real business. I smiled at her. Mom nodded, picked up the second basket, and followed me out of the courtyard gate. The sunlight was perfect, and more people were appearing on the streets. I knew my new life had only just begun. The Eastern City Market was bustling, as always. The moment we reached the street entrance, we heard vendors calling out, in every direction, selling vegetables, eggs, and mending services. Stalls lined the road, packed with a lively crowd. Spring sunlight spilled over the stone pavement, warming the bustling street. Mom and I quickly claimed a spot near the edge, not too out of the way, and spread out the clean burlap sack we'd brought. We set the bamboo baskets filled with pastries on top. We had barely finished arranging everything when a passing auntie stopped, eyeing us with curiosity. Girl, what are you selling? It smells wonderful. Auntie, these are osmanthus cakes and sar jujube cakes that I made myself, purely handmade. Please have a taste. I picked up a small piece of osmanthus cake and offered it with a sincere smile. Doing business meant being warm and friendly. That was the way to build goodwill. The auntie took the cake, popped it into her mouth, and her eyes lit up at once. Oh my! This tastes fantastic, sweet but not cloying. And that osmanthus fragrance is perfect. Much better than anything the supply cooperative sells. Her voice carried, and several other passers-by were drawn over, crowding around the stall. I seized the moment. Aunties, uncles, brothers, and sisters, these are all freshly made today. The osmanthus was picked this morning, and the sar jujubes are wild. Everything is clean and safe. 3 packets for 1 yuan, or 3 packets for 2 caddies worth of grain coupons. It's a fair deal either way. I had calculated the price carefully, half what the cooperative charged, and made it flexible with either cash or coupons to attract as many customers as possible. I'll take 3 packets of osmanthus cakes, the auntie who had tasted first said, pulling out a yuan and handing it over. I'll have 2 packets of sar jujube cakes with grain coupons, a young wife beside her added. Mom and I sprang into action. I handled the money and handed out the packets, while Mom neatly sorted the oil paper, wrapped pastries. We moved quickly and efficiently. Business right from opening felt incredibly satisfying, and the smile on my face grew even more genuine. Before long, a crowd had gathered in front of the stall. Everyone who tasted the cakes sang their praises. 1 packet here, 3 there, some bought extras for their children. Others said they'd take some home, for the elders to try something new. Girl, these pastries are excellent. When will you be back next? An old man who had bought 5 packets asked. Uncle, I'll be here every day from now on. If you want more, just come find me right here, I answered loudly, so the people around us could hear. It was free advertising. We were in the middle of a lively rush, when a man in cadre clothing walked over, frowning at my stall. You're setting up a private stall to sell goods. Speculation and profiteering are still prohibited? The customers around us fell silent at once and turned to watch. Mom's face went pale with fright. She instinctively tried to hide the bamboo basket behind her. My own heart skipped a beat, but I quickly steadied myself and kept smiling. Comrade, this isn't speculation or profiteering. These are handmade pastries I made myself. I'm earning with my own skills. Policies have already loosened, and ordinary people are allowed to do small businesses to supplement their income. My pastries use honest ingredients, no cheating, no shortcuts. If you don't believe me, please try one. I offered him a piece of sar jujube cake, The man hesitated, then accepted it. After one bite, the frown on his brow eased. He didn't speak again, only looked over my stall and the pastries in the customer's hands. Be more careful next time. Don't block the thoroughfare, and don't sell anything expired or spoiled. With that, he turned and left. Mom finally exhaled in relief, patting her chest. You scared me to death. I thought everything was going to be confiscated. It's fine, Mom. We're running an honest business. We have nothing to fear. I comforted her, silently grateful that I had kept my cool. The small scare actually boosted business even more. The earlier incident proved to everyone that my pastries tasted excellent. Even the cadre hadn't found fault, so people bought with greater confidence. By the time the sun was directly overhead, the baskets were nearly empty, with only a few packets left. I counted the money and grain coupons in my hand, 15 yuan, and more than 30 caddies of coupons. The number left both Mom and me overjoyed. Mom's eyes reddened with excitement. Won so much money in just one day. That's more than your father used to earn in an entire month. I couldn't hold back my own joy either. This was the first real money I had earned after the divorce, won through my own skills and hard work. It wasn't just cash, it was proof that I could stand on my own 2 feet. It strengthened my belief that as long as I worked hard, I could give Mom and myself a good life. Mom, let's pack up and head home. Tomorrow we'll make even more and try to sell even better. I gathered the baskets. Mom and I shared a smile, our eyes bright with hope for the future. On the walk home, the sunlight felt wonderfully warm. I clutched the heavy money and coupons, my steps light. The looks we received from passers-by no longer held pity or disdain, only envy. I knew this was only the beginning. My good days were just getting started. Business at the stall grew better every day. In less than half a month, I had earned nearly 100 yuan and saved up plenty of grain coupons. Mom smiled more often and carried herself with a straighter back. Every time she helped me at the market, she chatted happily with regular customers, her former worry completely gone. Word soon spread throughout the military compound. Many families knew that after the divorce I had started a stall and was making money. The way they looked at me changed. No more pity or whispered gossip, only respect and admiration. One day I had just returned from closing the stall and set the bamboo baskets in the courtyard when I saw Lu Zhenting standing at the gate. He was still in his crisp uniform, but the coldness on his face had been replaced by a carefully cultivated gentleness. In his hand, he carried a mesh bag filled with fruit and snacks. I laughed coldly to myself. I didn't need to guess why he was here. He must have heard how well my business was doing and decided I still had value. Now he wanted to come crawling back. Suwan, I came to see you and Mom. Lu Zhenting spoke first, his tone noticeably softer than before, even carrying a hint of flattery. Mom came out of the house, saw him, and her expression darkened at once. Without a word, she turned and went back inside, leaving him standing awkwardly at the entrance. I leaned against the doorframe with my arms folded, regarding him coolly. Regiment Commander Lu, is there something you need? Mom and I are doing quite well these days. There's no need for you to worry about us. The smile on Lu Zhenting's face stiffened. He clearly hadn't expected this reaction. He took a step forward, intending to enter the courtyard. But I raised a hand to stop him. Regiment Commander Lu, this is my home. Now you can't just come and go as you please. If you have something to say it right here at the gate. Neighbors were already poking their heads out to watch. Lu Zhenting's face tightened, but he forced himself to stay calm. Su Wan, I was wrong before. I shouldn't have divorced you so hastily. I know you're angry, but we were husband and wife once. There's no need to be so heartless. Hastily. I laughed, the sound soft yet laced with thick mockery. Luzenting, when you slapped that divorce certificate in front of me and demanded I sign it. Why didn't you call yourself hasty then? When you said I was too rustic and would only embarrass you, why didn't you remember we were husband and wife? My words stirred murmurs among the watching neighbors. Someone whispered, "So it was Regiment Commander Liu who looked down on her first." Another added, "Now that the girl is earning money, he suddenly wants her back." Liu Zhenting's face flushed and paled by turns. He lowered his voice. "Suwan, those were said in anger. Running a small stall may bring in money for now, but it's not a long-term solution, and it's hardly respectable. If you reconcile with me, you'll still be the regiment commander's wife. You won't have to work so hard under the sun and wind. I can even help you find an easy job." His tone dripped with superiority, as if remarrying him would be the greatest favor he could bestow. I looked at him and felt nothing but amusement. Respectable. In your eyes, earning with my own hands isn't respectable, but living off someone else and being looked down on is. Liu Zhenting, you're wrong. Now that I make my own money, I can buy whatever I want without watching anyone's face. That's what I call respectable. Liu Zhenting was struck speechless, his face turning livid. Suwan, don't be ungrateful. I'm sincerely willing to remarry you. You're a woman. Do you really plan to run a stall for the rest of your life? Who will take care of you when you're old and can't work anymore? I don't need you to take care of me. My voice was firm. I can support myself and Mom now, and I will be able to in the future too. As for you, Regiment Commander Liu, instead of worrying about me here, you should focus on managing your own affairs and stop doing those shameful things behind people's backs. My pointed remark made Liu Zhenting's eyes flicker. He glanced nervously at the watching neighbors, afraid I might reveal more. Suwan, what exactly do you want? His tone grew impatient. Name your conditions. As long as you agree to reconcile, I'll accept them all. My condition is very simple. I looked him straight in the eye and spoke each word clearly. From now on, stay out of my life and Mom's. We'll go our separate ways and have nothing more to do with each other. With that, I turned to go inside. Liu Zhenting lunged forward and grabbed my arm. Suwan, don't be impulsive. Think it over again. Let go. I yanked my arm free, raising my voice. Liu Zhenting, let me make this clear. Even if I never marry again in my life, even if I run this stall until I'm old, I will never reconcile with a selfish, ungrateful man like you. Give up that idea for good. The murmurs around us grew louder. The neighbors looked at Liu Zhenting with open disdain. Unable to bear it any longer, his face burning as though he had been slapped, he shot me a vicious glare, snatched up his mesh bag, and fled in embarrassment, walking so fast he didn't dare look back. Watching his panicked retreat, the neighbors broke into cheers for me. Wan well said. Men like that don't deserve a kind word. He was so heartless back then. It's too late for him to come crawling back now. Mom came out of the house wearing a gratified smile. Wan, you did the right thing. That's exactly how you should handle him. He won't dare pester you again. I smiled, my heart filled with boundless satisfaction. Liu Zhenting's regret meant nothing to me now. I was no longer the Suwan who revolved around him and swallowed every insult. From today onward, I lived only for myself. No one would ever control my life again. After Liu Zhenting was publicly humiliated, he stayed quiet for only a few days. I knew he and Shen Manley would never let it go. They had lost face and were terrified of watching me do better and better. Sooner or later, they would look for a chance to strike back. I had already prepared myself. While running the stall, I kept every batch of ingredients and the entire production process spotlessly clean. I also made sure to build good relationships with the other regular vendors nearby and chatted warmly with my steady customers. People of hearts, since my pastries used quality ingredients at fair prices, everyone was willing to stand with me. One busy morning at the market, while I was packaging pastries for customers, a sharp, piercing shout suddenly rang out. "Everyone, come look. This woman's pastries are poison goods." I ate her sar jujube cakes and spent the whole night throwing up and running to the toilet. I looked up. Shen Manley was supporting a pale, middle-aged woman who stood in front of my stall screaming at the top of her lungs. Customers swarmed over at once, pointing and whispering. Business halted instantly. Mom's face went white with fear as she hurried to explain. "Manley, you can't spread lies like that. Our pastries are clean and hygienic. Everything is made fresh every day. How could they make anyone sick?" "Lies." Shen Manley gave a cold laugh and pointed at the woman beside her. "This is my distant cousin. She bought your sar jujube cakes yesterday, ate them in the evening, and felt terrible all night. She's still weak, even now. If you don't believe me, we can go to the hospital for a checkup." The middle-aged woman coughed a few times on cue, frowning. "That's right. I've lived this long and never eaten anything so harmful. You're just trying to make dirty money." The crowd buzzed with discussion. Some looked suspicious, others began accusing me outright. "How can you run a business like this endangering people's lives? Hurry up and refund the money and pay for her medical costs." Shen Manley stared at me triumphantly, eyes full of challenge, clearly convinced I had no escape this time. I knew this had to be a scheme she and Lu Zhenting had cooked up together to ruin my reputation and destroy my business. But I didn't panic. I looked at Shen Manley calmly. "You claim your cousin ate my sar jujube cakes and got sick. Where's the evidence?" "Evidence." Shen Manlai pulled an oil paper packet from her pocket and tossed it in front of me. "Here's what's left of the cakes she bought from you yesterday. See for yourself if they're yours." I opened the packets. The sar jujube cakes inside were indeed made in my style, but they were sprinkled with some unidentified yellow powder that gave off a strange smell. I understood at once they had added it themselves later. "These are my cakes," I said, holding the packet up so everyone could see clearly. "But they don't look like the ones I sold." "Look, everyone. The sar jujube cakes I sell are always clean, with the perfect sweet and sour balance. There has never been any strange powder on them. Besides, I make a fixed amount every day. I remember exactly what I sold this woman yesterday, my last 3 packets. She even asked if I could lower the price. When I said no, she looked unhappy." I paused and turned to the middle-aged woman. "Sister, you claim the cakes made you sick. Then can you tell everyone what my stall looked like yesterday when you bought them? What was I wearing at the time?" The woman froze, her eyes darted around, and she stammered, unable to answer. Shen Manley jumped in quickly. "She's been feeling so terrible, who remembers little details like that?" "Su Wan, stop trying to change the subject. You need to give us an explanation today." "I can certainly give you one." I gave a cold laugh and turned to the vegetable seller next to me. "Aunt Zhang, yesterday, while I was at the stall, did you see the sister buy my pastries? Do you remember what she looked like then?" Aunt Zhang was straightforward and nodded at once. "I remember. After this sister bought the cakes, she spoke with a man in military uniform standing nearby. He looked familiar, seemed like Regiment Commander Lu." The crowd erupted. Shen Manley's face drained of color as she rushed to deny it. "You're lying. My cousin doesn't know Regiment Commander Lu at all." "I'm not lying," Aunt Zhang insisted. "I saw it clearly. That man was Regiment Commander Lu, and he even carried her things for her. The 2 of you came here today to cause trouble. Did you plan this together in advance?" Several of my regular customers stepped forward as well. That's right. We eat Wanwan's pastries every day and have never had any problems. These two are obviously here to make trouble on purpose. Watching Shen Manley's flustered expression, I continued, Shane Manley, did you really think sending someone to stir up a scene would destroy my business? You seem to forget that paper can't wrap fire. Everyone in the compound knows how you've been cozying up to Lou Genting every day. Now that I'm divorced, you're eager to take my place and terrified I might do well. So you teamed up to scheme against me? You're talking nonsense. Shen Manley shrieked, her voice cracking with rage. Whether it's nonsense or not, you know the truth. I raised my voice so the whole crowd could hear. Yesterday, when your cousin bought the cakes, Lou Zenting was standing right there watching. Today the two of you came together to cause trouble. If that's not a planned scheme, what is it? You didn't just want to ruin my business, you wanted to destroy my reputation, so you could be together without any obstacles. The murmurs grew into a roar. The crowd stared at Shen Manley and the middle-aged woman with utter contempt. Someone recognized Shen Manley and realized exactly what was going on. So that's what this is about, trying to steal another woman's husband and then frame her. How shameless! Regiment Commander Lou is no better. The ink on the divorce papers is barely dry, and he's already tangled up with another woman, plotting against his ex-wife. Suddenly, a voice from the crowd shouted, Regiment Commander Lou is here. Everyone turned. Sure enough, Lou Genting had arrived, probably worried Shen Manley couldn't handle it alone and had come to back her up. But the moment he pushed into the crowd, he was met with furious glares. Regiment Commander Lou, how could you do something like this? Your ex-wife is earning money with her own abilities. Instead of helping her, you team up with outsiders to harm her. We're all so disappointed. Lou Genting hadn't expected this turn of events. His face turned ashen as the accusations drowned out any attempt to explain. Shen Manley, sensing disaster, tried to drag the middle-aged woman away, but several stall owners blocked their path. Trying to run, explain yourselves first. In the chaos, the middle-aged woman finally broke. She burst into tears. It wasn't my idea. He gave me 50 yuan to pretend to be sick. I never even got sick from the cakes. The truth was out. The crowd exploded in anger, pointing and cursing at Lou Genting and Shen Manley without mercy. The pair could no longer stay. They shoved their way through the furious onlookers and fled in disgrace. Watching their retreating figures, I felt a heavy stone lift from my heart. The farce hadn't ruined my business, it had exposed their affair and their dirty scheme for everyone to see. But by that afternoon, the story had spread through the entire military compound. Lou Zenting and Shen Manley's attempt to sabotage his ex-wife became the hottest gossip. Everywhere they went, people stared with contempt and whispered behind their backs. Shen Manley didn't dare leave the house anymore. She hid at her brother's place and only slipped out to buy groceries after dark. Lou Zenting lost all faith in the unit. His comrades looked at him strangely, and the subordinates, who once flocked around him, gradually distanced themselves. A few days later, the military issued its decision. Because of improper conduct and damaging military-civilian relations, Lou Zenting was stripped of his regiment commander post, demoted to an ordinary cadre, and transferred out of the unit. The news brought sighs throughout the compound. Everyone said he had brought it on himself. Watching their miserable downfall, I felt no glee, only complete peace. The old grudges and entanglements had finally ended with their departure. Mom and I discussed moving out of the family compound. We had lived there for years, but it was filled with memories, and we kept running into familiar faces who would bring up the past. It was better to start fresh somewhere new. With the money from the stall, we rented a modest, but well-located storefront in the city center. The rent wasn't cheap, but the foot traffic was excellent, perfect for opening a proper shop. Mom worried about the cost at first, but I sat down and ran the numbers with her. Mom, we can't keep running a street stall forever. A permanent shop is more respectable, more stable, and will attract even more customers. We'll earn the rent back in no time. Mom was convinced. She rolled up her sleeves and worked alongside me. We named the shop Wangxiang Pavilion, simple, easy to remember, carrying my name and the fragrant scent of the pastries. The renovation was straightforward. Clean white walls, a few simple tables and chairs, and a striking sign hung outside. The shop took shape quickly. Besides the osmanthus and sour jujube cakes, I developed several new varieties: red bean paste cakes and walnut cakes, all made with quality ingredients and traditional methods. The day before opening, I prepared several large platters of samples and gave them out free to the neighbors and passers-by so they could taste first. On opening day, there were no drums or gongs. But thanks to the reputation I had built at the stall, many old customers came specially. The shop was soon packed. People admired the clean, tidy space and breathed in the rich aroma of pastries, praising them nonstop. Yuan, this shop of yours is wonderful, much more convenient than the market. From now on, we can just come here whenever we want pastries instead of waiting for market day. This walnut cake is delicious. The ingredients are so generous. I'll bring more friends next time. Mom and I were run off our feet, but our hearts were filled with sweetness. Seeing the satisfied smiles on our customers' faces and hearing their compliments, I knew I had made the right choice. Business grew better every day. I hired 2 quick-handed aunties to help, so Mom no longer had to work so hard. She only needed to tidy up and keep the shop clean. In her spare time, she would sit by the door watching the passers-by, a contented smile always on her face. Plenty of people tried to introduce me to potential husbands, workers, cadres, even business owners, but I politely declined them all. It wasn't that I never wanted to marry again. I simply felt my life was already complete. I had my own career, Mom by my side, and days that were full and free. When it came to romance, I would let fate decide. There was no need to force it. That evening, after closing the shop, Mom and I sat under the lamp, counting the day's earnings. Looking at the thick stack of bills in my hands, Mom sighed with emotion. Juan, I never imagined the 2 of us could live like this. Mom was so worried you would suffer after the divorce. Turns out I was the one overthinking. I took Mom's hand and smiled. Mom, this is the result of our hard work together. The days ahead will only get better. We won't stop at one shop. We'll make Wangxiang Pavilion famous, so even more people can enjoy our pastries. Mom nodded, her eyes shining with hope. Moonlight poured through the window, illuminating the room and lighting the clear path ahead of us. In the spring of 1980, I broke free from the shackles of an unhappy marriage, seized the opportunities of the times, and with my own 2 hands and relentless effort, stepped into the life I have today. All the old grievances and suppression had become the courage and strength I now carried. I know the road ahead is still long and there may be storms, but I am no longer afraid. I have learned to live for myself and to rely on myself. As long as I hold on to hope and keep my feet on solid ground, I will carve out a brilliant path of my own, blooming with flowers,